Dinar Shift. The world of international finance is a landscape of constant, subtle movement, and today attention is focused sharply on developments surrounding the Iraqi Dinar, or IQD. Reports emanating from various global financial centers suggest that a highly anticipated, yet discreet, process is potentially underway. This process involves the movement of the Iraqi currency within international banking systems, a foundational step that must precede any formal, large-scale alteration in its official valuation on the global stage. These initial phases are often characterized by extreme caution and a tightly controlled flow of information, ensuring that the integrity of the market remains protected against undue speculation or manipulation. The very nature of this work, which deals with sovereign currency and complex international financial agreements, mandates a quiet, deliberate approach. This is not the kind of operation that unfolds in dramatic public announcements, but rather through a series of coordinated technical steps between central banks and major global clearing institutions. The measured pace reflects the gravity of integrating a national currency, particularly one from a strategically important and oil-rich nation, more fully into the world's mainstream financial machinery. Every action taken is designed to uphold the stability required for such a momentous transition. The movement being observed is tied directly to the fundamental structural reforms within Iraq's financial architecture. For a national currency to gain wider acceptance and utility in cross-border transactions, it must first meet stringent international standards for transparency, compliance, and regulatory oversight. This foundational work has been a key focus of the Iraqi government and its central bank for an extended period. These efforts include modernizing payment systems, implementing stricter anti-money laundering protocols, and aligning domestic banking practices with global norms. The role of international banks at this juncture is pivotal. They act as the essential conduits for this integration, processing and recording transactions in a manner that conforms to the rules set by various global financial bodies. Their participation validates the steps taken by the Iraqi authorities and provides the necessary trust and infrastructure for the currency to be treated as a stable, viable medium for international trade and reserve purposes. Without this institutional trust and operational readiness, any change in valuation would lack the robust backing needed for long-term sustainability. A significant part of this behind-the-scenes activity is centered around the process known as redemption. Within private banking circles, a term used loosely to describe the mechanism by which the currency is transitioned or exchanged through official channels. The reports indicate that certain international banks have begun to quietly facilitate these transactions, often under strict confidentiality agreements. This suggests a phase of limited or soft deployment, a crucial period for testing the mechanics of any potential widespread financial system change. By beginning with smaller, controlled volumes, banks can test their operational readiness, verify the authenticity and volume of the currency in circulation, and ensure their compliance systems can handle the specific regulatory demands of the Iraqi dinar. This measured ramp-up is standard practice in international finance, designed to prevent systemic shock or logistical failure. It provides a real-world crucible for the planned financial overhaul before any broader, public phase can be considered. The focus is entirely on procedural integrity and system functionality. The concept of a global rollout, in this context, refers to the gradual expansion of accessibility for the Iraqi dinar within the network of global banking institutions. It is not an instantaneous event but a phased increase in the number of banks, geographical locations, and transaction types that can handle the currency through official, verifiable means. Initially, this often involves a select group of major correspondent banks and financial clearing houses that specialize in complex, high-volume currency operations. These institutions lay the groundwork, establishing the necessary technical interfaces, legal frameworks, and compliance mechanisms. As confidence in the stability and liquidity of the IQD grows, this network slowly but deliberately expands. The goal is to move the dinar from being a primarily domestic currency to one that is recognized and readily transactable in key global financial markets, supporting Iraq's increased participation in international trade and investment. This is a quiet and steady expansion of financial infrastructure. News suggesting a confidential beginning to this rollout often points to actions taken by financial entities that have direct, ongoing relationships with the Central Bank of Iraq and major international regulatory bodies. These institutions are the vanguards of any sovereign currency shift, as they possess the immense technical capability and regulatory approval required. The quiet nature of these initial stages is deliberate. Public speculation can lead to market volatility and unauthorized activity, which could undermine the years of effort invested in establishing a stable exchange framework. By keeping the initial phases within a controlled banking ecosystem, the governing financial authorities can maintain full oversight and control over the flow of the currency. The focus is on establishing verifiable, transparent, and regulatory compliant pathways for the dinar's international movement, ensuring every step aligns with established global financial statutes and controls, particularly those related to illicit finance and money movement. A key aspect of the reported activities involves the rigorous due diligence performed by international banks on the physical currency itself. For any formal exchange mechanism to function, the financial system must be able to accurately identify and process legitimate notes. This includes authentication against counterfeiting and verifying the provenance of large holdings to ensure compliance with international anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regulations. Banks must implement sophisticated technologies and protocols to handle the specific security features of the Iraqi dinar denominations. This forensic level of financial review is non-negotiable and represents a substantial logistical and technological undertaking for participating institutions. The quiet start of the rollout likely incorporates the pilot testing of these authentication and tracking systems, working out any potential flaws before the system is open to a wider group of commercial and retail transactions. This is a critical security step for maintaining the integrity of the sovereign currency. The ultimate trajectory for the Iraqi dinar, as understood by global financial analysts, is inextricably linked to Iraq's extensive natural resource wealth, primarily its vast oil and gas reserves. The country's economy remains heavily reliant on hydrocarbon exports, which are universally priced in US dollars. A more robust, internationally recognized national currency is seen as a crucial component for national economic sovereignty and for diversifying Iraq's financial portfolio. The ongoing global banking activities are a technical manifestation of a larger economic shift, positioning the IQD to better reflect Iraq's intrinsic national wealth and its growing role in the global energy market. The quiet rollout indicates that the necessary logistical and compliance steps are being taken to allow the currency to function more seamlessly as a true instrument of international trade, directly correlating its value and stability with the country's significant economic fundamentals. This careful coordination across international borders speaks to a unified effort, suggesting that key global financial players and sovereign monetary authorities are moving in alignment with Iraq's central bank. The complexity of a global currency operation requires the simultaneous activation of numerous systems in different jurisdictions, from North America and Europe to the Middle East and Asia. The reported involvement of multiple international banks points to a decentralized, yet synchronized, deployment of the underlying financial mechanisms. Each participating institution must modify its internal systems and train its personnel to handle the dinar's specific requirements. This level of institutional cooperation is highly indicative of a process that has achieved a high degree of international consensus and regulatory backing, moving beyond planning and into the execution phase, albeit a very controlled one. The economic goal of these activities is to establish a more realistic and formal exchange rate for the Iraqi dinar, one that is determined by structured, auditable market forces rather than being subject to informal or parallel market fluctuations. The official channel transactions that are reportedly being initiated by international banks are the first steps in creating a stable and liquid foreign exchange market for the IQD. By bringing a greater volume of transactions onto the official electronic platforms, the Central Bank of Iraq gains increased visibility and control, which is essential for conducting effective monetary policy. The integrity of the process is paramount, as the legitimacy of the final rate is dependent on the transparency and rule of law adherence demonstrated during this transitional period. This gradual formalization is the engine driving the long-term stabilization effort. The quiet nature of the reported activities is also a reflection of the security concerns inherent in any major financial transformation in a post-conflict nation. Managing public expectation and preventing unauthorized financial activity are critical priorities for all parties involved. A sudden, dramatic shift in currency status could trigger both local and international market disruptions. Therefore, the strategy appears to be a gradual, controlled release of operational capacity within the closed loop of the official international banking system. This minimizes the opportunities for profiteering based on insider information and ensures that the transition is executed smoothly and safely. The term quietly in the report signifies a responsible, risk-averse approach to a monumental financial undertaking, prioritizing systematic integrity over public spectacle. For the local Iraqi economy, the internationalization of the dinar is seen as a vital step towards economic diversification and stability. Currently, the reliance on the US dollar for most major transactions, including oil sales, creates an inherent vulnerability. The ability for the IQD to be freely exchanged and accepted by global banks, even in a limited capacity initially, signals a reduction in this dollar dependency. This process provides Iraqi businesses and citizens with greater financial flexibility and should, over time, help stabilize domestic prices by reducing the volatility associated with black market currency exchange rates. The reported banking moves are therefore not just a matter of international finance, but a direct attempt to strengthen the economic foundation within Iraq itself, empowering its financial institutions. The technical infrastructure required to support a global currency process of this nature is immense. It involves the integration of the Iraqi banking system with global platforms like SUPIFT, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, in a fully compliant manner. The international banks reportedly involved are assisting with this integration, ensuring that every dinar transaction is traceable, auditable, and compliant with the latest global standards for financial messaging and security. This is a critical barrier to entry for any currency seeking international relevance. The early phase of a rollout means that these newly integrated systems are actively processing test or limited live transactions. The success of this technical alignment is a prerequisite for any future adjustments to the currency's official market position. Reports of the commencement of redemption activities should be interpreted strictly within the technical context of bank-to-bank currency exchange and valuation. It refers to the operational act of major financial institutions formally accepting and processing the IQD through official, documented channels at a controlled rate, as determined by a consensus of international monetary authorities and the Central Bank of Iraq. This structured process is the counterpoint to the previously predominant informal market. By gradually funneling transactions through this official pipeline, the ultimate goal is to establish a verifiable volume and flow that supports a sustainable and internationally respected exchange rate. This is an informational point about banking procedure, not an invitation to engage in any financial activity. The international banks participating in this complex effort operate under the strict purview of multiple regulatory bodies, including the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve, and other global financial oversight organizations. Their reported actions suggest that the Iraqi Central Bank has successfully met a series of benchmarks and compliance requirements deemed necessary by this international financial community. No major global institution would risk its operational licenses or reputation by engaging in an unvetted or non-compliant currency process. Thus, the very participation of reputable international banks is a strong, albeit quiet, indicator of the regulatory acceptance and progress made by Iraq in reforming its financial sector, a key informational detail for those following the Dinar story. This measured approach to integrating the Iraqi dinar into global commerce is a long-term strategic endeavor, reflecting a concerted effort to create a sustainable economic future for Iraq. It is a slow, methodical building of institutional trust and financial infrastructure, brick by brick. The initial quiet transactions are the building blocks of a transparent and regulated currency market. The focus remains on establishing a foundation of transactional integrity, liquidity, and compliance that can withstand the scrutiny of the international community. Any change in the currency standing will be a consequence of this fundamental work, not a sudden, unpredictable event. The process prioritizes stability and global financial alignment above all else. The underlying news narrative, focusing on the discrete movements within international banks, highlights the critical distinction between public perception and professional banking reality. While public interest often centers on the immediate potential for a rate change, the reality of global finance is an intricate dance of technical implementation and regulatory sign-offs. The rollout is a functional operational term describing the systems being brought online to handle the dinar at an institutional level. This includes the preparation of foreign exchange desks, the updating of treasury management systems, and the establishment of dedicated compliance teams. It is a logistical story of financial engineering designed to support future economic activity and stability. The volume of these initial quiet transactions is likely to be small but highly significant from a technical perspective. They serve as a proof of concept for the entire global banking apparatus that will eventually handle the dinar on a larger scale. Successfully clearing and settling these early trades demonstrates that the interconnected systems, from Iraq's central bank to the international correspondent banks, are functioning as designed and meeting all necessary regulatory thresholds. This technical validation is far more critical than high transaction volumes at this stage, as it provides the necessary confidence for a wider scaling of operations in the future. The initial quiet period is essentially a dress rehearsal for the formal re-entry of the IQD into the main global financial stage. International banks are also reportedly engaging in the creation of specific financial products and services tailored to the growing international trade needs of Iraq. As the country's economy expands and diversifies beyond oil, the demand for clear, reliable currency exchange mechanisms will grow. The reported rollout suggests that financial institutions are proactively preparing for this future, developing the tools, such as letters of credit, trade financing, and forward currency contracts, that will require a formal, stable valuation for the dinar. Their preparation is a direct function of the anticipated economic requirements, indicating a confidence in the long-term stability and utility of the Iraqi currency. The phrase "quietly begin" in the context of the news narrative is key, underscoring the non-public nature of institutional financial mechanisms. These operations do not require media attention, they simply require the necessary regulatory and technical approvals to begin functioning. This controlled commencement is a strong sign that the process is being handled with the seriousness and discretion appropriate for a sovereign currency of a nation with such a significant global economic footprint. It reflects a desire to manage the transition responsibly, ensuring that the integrity of the process is not compromised by unwarranted speculation that could impact the broader market. For those observing the Iraqi dinar, the focus should remain on the factual, verifiable actions of official institutions. The reported involvement of international banks in technical, compliance-driven operations is one of the most concrete indicators of fundamental structural progress within Iraq's financial sector. This is not about speculative outcomes, but about the tangible, verifiable steps being taken to modernize and integrate the country's currency into the highly regulated global financial ecosystem. These activities mark a significant milestone in Iraq's ongoing effort to establish long-term economic stability and international financial credibility. The history of currency revaluations and re-entries into global markets often follows this precise pattern, an initial phase of deep, technical collaboration between sovereign central banks and major international clearing institutions. The initial process is always more about technical alignment and regulatory compliance than about any immediate, dramatic shift in value. The current reports of controlled, quiet engagement by international banks fit squarely within this historical precedent. It is a logistical process being executed by financial professionals, designed to be as seamless and non-disruptive as possible to the greater global market while simultaneously strengthening the Iraqi financial framework. The Central Bank of Iraq's relationship with its international counterparts, particularly those in the United States and Europe, is central to the success of this reported rollout. The collaboration focuses on aligning Iraqi policy with international banking requirements, especially regarding dollar transfers and financial oversight. The reported actions by global banks are a testament to the success of these diplomatic and technical negotiations, signaling a willingness to incorporate the Iraqi dinar more fully into their operational systems based on regulatory assurances and compliance achievements. This ongoing dialogue and demonstrated collaboration is the real story behind the technical currency movements. The overall narrative being reported is one of a deliberate, calculated financial maneuver designed to secure the long-term economic health of Iraq. It is a story of regulatory compliance, technical integration, and institutional trust building. The quiet beginning of transactional activities by global banks is an informational point that underscores the seriousness and advanced stage of the underlying financial reforms. It is not an end in itself, but a crucial step in the multi-phased journey of fully integrating the Iraqi dinar into the regulated, compliant, and transparent world of international finance and commerce, reflecting a commitment to sustainable economic growth. The sheer magnitude of the task, transitioning a major Middle Eastern currency into a more globally functional and compliant instrument, necessitates this quiet, systematic approach. The initial stages must establish impeccable records and demonstrate perfect adherence to all international financial laws, particularly those designed to prevent illicit money flows. The international banking community's involvement, even if discreet, is a significant validation of the procedural security now in place. This focus on verifiable process and controlled execution is the cornerstone of any successful and sustainable sovereign currency re-entry into the global marketplace. The reported activities involving the dinar serve as a powerful informational data point for those tracking Iraq's economic progress. They are tangible evidence of the nation's commitment to financial reform and its successful engagement with the global regulatory framework. By allowing major international banks to begin these discrete activities, the Iraqi government and its central bank are demonstrating a readiness to move forward with a systematic, controlled approach. This is an essential phase for establishing the solid financial footing required to support the long-term economic aspirations tied to the country's vast national resources and its burgeoning commercial sector. The final takeaway from these reports is the recognition that major currency shifts are inherently complex and gradual. They are driven by technical implementation and regulatory checkpoints, not sensational announcements. The news of international banks quietly beginning their transactional and processing activities involving the Iraqi dinar is a strong informational signal that the groundwork is being laid. This is a story of financial systems integration and compliance adherence, a vital and non-speculative development that sets the stage for the dinar's future role in the global economy, directly tied to Iraq's ongoing economic stability and growth.